The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
So you remember when standing for the national anthem was like the hot button story? It was only 6 years ago today that the NFL came up with the policy that if you didn't want to stand for the anthem, you could stay in the locker room. If you went out on the field for the anthem and you didn't stand, you would get fined, and all that dissipated within about 18 months or so. And now as we look back on it, you wonder, gee, what was such a big deal about that at the time? But it was a big deal. We'll get to that later in the show. Also, of course, the NCAA, the NBA playoffs as the Dallas Mavericks take Game 1 on the road last night, and lots of react from the Commanders' offseason workouts, including a very happy Jonathan Allen. Yeah, I mean, he's the one that said at the end of last season, this before Dan Quinn was hired, but he said, I'm not really up for another rebuild here. So while I'd like to finish my career in Washington, he's from Stonebridge High School, I did a lot of winning in Alabama, and I haven't done a lot of winning in Washington. He's going now into his 8th year. But he was all sunshine and lollipops yesterday, and we'll get to some of his comments and also what Dan Quinn said, including that there will be at least one joint practice, which will take place before they play the Dolphins in August in their exhibition. I don't think it's their exhibition opener. It might be the second game, but it's August 17th is that game, and they will practice before that. Remember there was well, they've had a number of them over the years, but one of them was they had a joint practice against the Jets, and a fight broke out on the field, and that was part of Hard Knocks. We also had years ago when Tom Brady was still playing for the Patriots, they had a joint practice with New England. This is when Jay Gruden was the coach, and the Patriots were like saying, what's going on with these guys? This is the most undisciplined bunch I've ever seen. And that was part of the downfall of Jay Gruden, too, the Club J that he ran as the coach. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. But let's begin with what happened last night as the Dallas Mavericks take Game 1 of the series, and they do it on the road against the Minnesota Timberwolves team, which probably was a little bit gassed, I should say, after what they had to go through to get through Denver, winning Game 7 on the road. And the Mavericks had a little bit more rest after wrapping up their series in 6. And down the stretch, that may have been the difference as Dallas outscored Minnesota 10-3 in the final moments of the game, in the final part of the game. It was, I guess it was a 4-point lead for Minnesota with about 3 minutes left to go. The two big guns performed for Dallas. Luka Doncic had 33 points, and more importantly, maybe, Kyrie Irving had 30 points, 24 in the first half to kind of keep Dallas in the game until Luka was able to take over in the fourth quarter when he scored 15 of his 33. And Anthony Edwards, for all the praise that he has gotten, and most of it is deserved as he's managed to get his team to this point, the Michael Jordan comparisons, you got to pump your brakes, because even though they were able to close out Denver on the road, he was 6 of 24 from the field. And last night, in a circumstance where they could get the upper hand at home, now Minnesota has proven they can win on the road, so it's not, I guess, as crucial that they win at home, but in a chance to, get the first chip here, you got to get 4. They came up short as Edwards, again, didn't shoot well. 6 of 16 from the field, only 19 points, and may have made things worse for himself with this in the post-game news conference.
We came out flat today. And then we found our energy, then we went back to being flat. So I think it was just on us. Everything was on us today. I didn't get downhill as much. Yeah, just stuff like that. We was just a little tired, probably.
A little tired. That didn't sit well with Draymond Green, who has been added to the Inside the NBA set on TNT, along with Kenny and Shaq and Barkley, and said this about those Edwards comments.
I've said a lot about Anthony Edwards interviews all playoffs long, and that was one of my least favorites. Saying we're tired, we didn't know what to expect. The same way those guys have followed you to this point, they'll follow that as well. And they got completely dominated in the paint. We've all talked about the points, 62-38. But they shot 49. They shot 49 threes. Here's that right here, gassed, right? Like, you got to go through that. This is the first one. He's 22 years old, and he's a star. We all believe he's the next face. That's who they follow. But they have to be better in the paint. They shot 49 threes versus 25, and they got the size advantage. We all talked about how Dallas wasn't going to be able to compete with their size. And you come out and shoot that many threes, give up 62 points in the paint, and get out-rebounded, that's a recipe for disaster.
And it was, as they lost last night, 108-105. They got Game 2 coming up tomorrow night, and that'll again be in Minnesota, a chance to even up the series. But you now have a very different Kyrie Irving. And we talked about this yesterday. Howard Beck of, The Ringer. Yeah, he's working for The Ringer now. Talked about the metamorphosis of Kyrie Irving. Remember what a pariah he was in Boston and at the end of his run in Brooklyn, and then he was traded to Dallas, and it was like, good luck with that guy. He's a locker room killer. And he's been anything but in Dallas and has been a key part of their success as they now take the first game of the Western Conference Finals. He had 30 points last night and showed up on the postgame show to talk to the crew, and there was a question that Barkley was dying to ask him, which you'll hear the rest of the guys busting on Barkley as he finally gets it out. But this was a very jovial, friendly, very, very composed Kyrie Irving as he stepped up onto the set of TNT to talk to the crew.
In about 30 minutes, it won't mean anything, to be honest with you guys. Just because we feel like we played a decent game, but the first half didn't go our particular way. We felt like we gave him a lot of open jump shots. Jaden McDaniels got going a little bit, and me and Luka were trying to figure out the rhythm of the game. I got going a little bit early, and then he was trying to figure out his footing. But, I felt like we competed on the defensive end and gave ourselves a chance in the second half, and came down to the wire, and I feel like majority of the games in this series will be like that.
Chuck asked the question, Chuck.
I said
I got to ask you. Okay, so the other day,
Hold on. Let him ask.
You know what it is, Shaq?
If you ever interrupt my flow again.
You got blown out.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I don't want a record made after me.
No, it's Ernie, Shaq,
diss track on the way. I don't want to be part of a diss record. I'm sorry, my bad. Hey, Kyrie, you at home minding your business the other night.
Yeah, what about it?
You with your beautiful family just chilling, probably having a nice meal, and then the young fella says, I got Kyrie. And you said, excuse me?
Yeah.
And he said it again. He said, I got Kyrie.
Yeah.
That's the most aggressive you've been in a long time.
Yes, sir.
I know that had to irk you a little bit.
Use it as a motivation. When I was sitting at home and I saw it, I was like, it's just a nod of respect. And then also, I knew what type of game it was going to be for Game 1 and also for the rest of the series. So you're right. I was at home with my family watching Game 7.
You just minding your own business.
And then Ant comes out and says, I got Kyrie. But also that's a no-fear mentality. And that's why we love Ant. So coming out tonight, I knew that he was going to pressure me a little bit. But I knew that they were coming off a Game 7, grueling game. So their legs were biting them a little bit tonight. So hopefully Game 2, they come back and, they set in a little bit more, but we'll be prepared.
That'll be Game 2 tomorrow night in Minnesota, 8:30 tip-off as the Mavericks take the first game. Irving 0 for 3 from 3. Again, almost 2-to-1 difference in attempted three-point shots. 49 attempted by Minnesota. They made 18 of them. Dallas took only 25, made 6 of them. Doncic making 3, and you had Irving going 0 for 3 from the three-point line, but did produce 30 points. So between the two big guns, you get 63 points, and that's more than half of the total for the Mavericks as they scored 108 and can take a commanding lead, although I don't think you count out Minnesota going to Dallas, even if they lose Game 2 tomorrow night. To the NFL, and there has been some movement on making it so that we don't have these two sticks and chains to measure first downs. We'll get to that. But Mike Florio was on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday talking about one of the things that they agreed to, and that's that the NFL draft is going to be in Pittsburgh in 2025 or 2026, I should say. It's Green Bay next year. So the draft will be in Pittsburgh in 2026. And they also talked about the movement towards getting rid of the chains, and I'll get to that in a second. But first, this is on the scheduling, and he makes a very interesting point about how a regular schedule can really help you, and this might be something for Washington this year, which has only 2 primetime games. They've got in week 3. They go to Cincinnati for Monday Night Football, and then I think it's week 11 they're playing Philadelphia. Both those games on the road, but it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs, who are playing games because they're on Christmas again. They're playing games every single day of the week this year. All 7 days of the week, the Chiefs are scheduled to play, and Florio made this point about them and how they've handled all this odd scheduling as they have been I guess they've been the dynasty, right? They've been the most recent dynasty. Winning 3 out of 4 makes you a dynasty in Super Bowls, and he makes this point about how the scheduling has seemingly not affected the Chiefs.
The Chiefs are a big draw. The Chiefs are an exciting team, and the Chiefs keep winning even with that. That's what's amazing. The Texans last year, they played every game except Week 18, which got moved to Saturday night. They played every game at 1 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. And teams love that. Coaches love that. It's a rhythm. It's certainty. There's no disruption to the schedule. You are on that same train every week. Once you win, though, they start jerking around your Thursday and Sunday and Christmas and this, and the Chiefs still find ways to win even with all that. That's what's one of the most amazing things about what they do.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And, I read into what he says there about Houston last year with C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback, playing every game in what was the equivalent of a 1 o'clock start. I find that hard to believe, too. I have to look back at the schedule. They're a Central Time Zone team. But all their games were on a regular rotation, and that might actually be something that is helpful. If you're a coach, you're going to downplay that because you don't want to put it in the minds of your players. Hey, we're being screwed around with here, and we've got kind of an excuse to fall on our faces. So that's not going to come from a coach. This is on the first down marker, and with all the innovations that they have in not just in football but in all of society, you wonder why the first downs are measured the way they are. Well, there's some movement there. The owners have agreed that they will begin testing on automatic first down markers. Like, you will know where you have to be. They don't have to bring out the chains. You don't have to have that delay. You don't have to have the referee necessarily spot the ball, which is one of the crazier ways of doing things, especially when you come down to a first down that doesn't come up because of inches. So this is a system that they've already installed in the Jets and Giants Stadium and the Dolphins Stadium. And if other teams are happy with the way they test it during the preseason, it will be implemented for all teams in 2025. This is Florio on the thoughts of where this is going with first down marking.
It's smart. And you've had people connected to the league complaining for years now. Sean Payton's one of the ones who always says this. Look at all the advances we've made over the past 100 years since the NFL came along. And they still use 2 guys, 2 sticks, and 10 yards of chain link to determine whether or not a first down has been gained. There are so many different ways they can incorporate technology into football. I have said for years now, they need to take the current officiating function, they need to tear it down completely, and they need to rebuild it with all technologies we currently have available. Chips in balls, chips in players, chips all over the field. They're not expensive. The NFL can afford them even if they are. There are ways to make it better, and legalized wagering raises the stakes. They need to fix this stuff and button it up before the scandal that's going to have the NFL in an ugly spot with Congress and maybe an agency that would have oversight of the NFL. They gotta spend the money and get this stuff taken care of. And this is a great step in the right direction to getting everything right.
The problem I have, it's the official when he marks the ball. That to me is so random, right? Everything else is buttoned up, or we hope is buttoned up. It's like this guy goes, I think you went down right there.
I remember a game from 1996, Vikings-Broncos. It was a close game back and forth, and there was a key fourth down, and the official who was holding the spot with his right foot on one leg was kind of like trying to hold his balance, and he hopped a little bit, And that hop ended up being the difference between first down Denver and first down Minnesota.
Yeah, and then you have referees putting index cards in between the marker and the football. I mean, that kind of nonsense, I think, needs to end. Anyway, despite the implementation of this automatic system that they're going to have, they're still going to have chain crews at the game. They'll serve as the backup option if a referee gets hurt, and also will be in place just in case they go, oh, that system's not working. What are we going to do? I guess eventually it'll be phased out, but that's the plan now, and it's long overdue. We what do we do as viewers too before the yellow line? The yellow line has only existed for maybe 20 years, maybe less. And we watch a game and have to guess where they have to get to. So things change, and they change for the better. I think in most cases, I think there's still a lot of tweaking that has to be done to instant replay. But this is another move in the right direction. The delay for measuring with the chains and trotting these guys out, and how inexact it is when you have the technology to make it exact. It would seem to make a lot more sense if they go to this. So they're going to experiment with it in the preseason, and then hopefully by 2025, it'll be fully in place in the NFL. Coming up, more reaction from the Commanders' offseason workouts. Dan Quinn with what he sees in the leadership of Bobby Wagner, what Wagner sees as in his own leadership, and much more. Plus, next hour, we'll hear from Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was a treat at his news conference the other day. Oh, we'll get to a lot of what he said coming up in the 10 o'clock hour. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Hi, Mike Callow in for Tony today. Also in the next hour, I want to talk a little bit more about this, the Jonathan Allen circumstance. He's going into his 8th year here in Washington. Has been a great player. He's made the Pro Bowl several times. He's been a good soldier. He has been very positive for the most part about what's gone on here, despite the debauculous seasons that he's had, including 4-13 from last year. I think he finally reached a breaking point when they had that ugly game in Philadelphia where they should have won and lost, and he just went off. He dropped a bunch of F-bombs. And I think it was like his realization, it's over here with this coaching staff, and it may be over for me here in Washington because there's another rebuild coming. I'm going to be going into my 8th year in 2024, and I want to win. He's coming from Alabama. He's a local guy, went to Stonebridge High School, would like to stay here, and when he had the opportunity to leave in free agency, he re-signed with Washington. This is where he wants to be, but he wants to win. And now he's finally sensing that things may be turning the corner. I mean, he was asked, do you think you're ready to be a winner? And he says, well, you don't win games in May. You win games in September. He's right about that. But he's calling this a dream job. And he hasn't really expressed it that way before. Loves the coaching staff. I think he's going to be their kind of a player. And although he's, I don't know about his contract situation, maybe going to last year, I don't know. But I think he's, has no guaranteed money left on his contract, has 2 years left. So theoretically, they could cut him and not owe him anything. But also, I think he would fit into their plans. And I think they also, with all the new players that they brought in, the continuity of having him back would be good. You want to have your core guys, and he's one of them with Terry McLaurin and, probably at this point even Brian Robinson, who's only going into his 3rd year. There's a handful of guys that lead this team, and Jonathan Allen is one of the holdovers. As for the new guys, the most interesting one to watch will be Bobby Wagner, who was brought in to be the leader, was the leader when he played in Seattle all those years, and has a lot of familiarity with Dan Quinn. First, though, the thought from Quinn on the schedule, and we talked about in the first part of the show how the Kansas City Chiefs have managed to navigate a schedule which has them playing all over the calendar. And that's what happens when you're good. They want you in all those primetime games. They want you on Christmas Day. They want to see you on those Saturday night games that stand alone. Those are the things that they want from you when you're a champion. The Commanders obviously aren't there yet, and they have only really 2 primetime games with a Monday night game and a Thursday night game. But Quinn is preparing for the hopefulness, I guess is a good way to put it, the hopefulness that they will be someday in the Chiefs' boat and being scheduled at different times, and he's ready to deal with it.
You'd like to set everything up, where I have a game. This is what I do on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday. And so when those games come, you'd really just shift. This would be like a Wednesday. This would be like a Friday. This is what we do before the game. So it's not as difficult as it seems. You have some travel that you have to work in, shorter weeks, longer weeks. But, again, staying true to a process, this is how we get ready. That's to me the biggest piece of it.
Yeah. So, that's what you'll hear from coaches. You won't hear them say, oh, my God, the league really has it in for us, sticking us in all these places. No, that's not going to happen. Here's the part about Bobby Wagner, who I think is going to be one of the most interesting players to watch this year. What does he have left in the tank as a player? And equally as important, what is his leadership going to mean to this team? The defensive leader, would you say it's Jonathan Allen? I don't know. Generally it's not one of the front seven guys that is the defensive leader. Usually it's a linebacker or a safety, maybe a corner, but most often a linebacker. This is what Quinn believes that he's going to get from Wagner as a leader and how he developed his leadership over the years playing in Seattle.
So what you'll find from him is this is a rare competitor. I remember, going on 10 years now or longer, me filming an install. So, as coaches, sometimes you film to see, how did I teach and how did it go? And I can remember that day specifically, it might have been the first day of an OTA. I had filmed it and went back home that night to watch it. And I was so pissed at myself because I didn't ask specific people the questions. In other words, Ben, what is this? And John, what is this? And so I'd ask questions, and Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas answered every question, as it come up. They just had that type of intensity about them. So I would say he is both. Pull somebody to the side to discuss it, think about it in this way, but he does it in his own way as a leader, and that's what I want he and Zach and others that are here to make sure they're here as ball players first. But when you look back on it, some of the people that mentored him, now that's a way to pay it forward. And so that's one of the coolest parts of our game is when now you get to pass that along to the next one, and the very best players do that. And I look back and was fortunate to, coach guys like a Bryant Young or a Jason Taylor and, others that has made the Hall of Fame. But there was this common trait of sharing that knowledge to the next. And I thought that was always one of the cool parts of the great players that were willing to pass it on to the next guy. And
again, while Wagner is considered to be a leader, don't forget he did lead the league in tackles last year. So there is also the London Fletcher model that he's similar age coming here. I think they're about the same age when they come to Washington. And Fletcher was a tackling machine for 3 or 4 years. They made only one playoff appearance with him, but with the way they've upgraded the roster and having Bobby Wagner aboard, that's going to be big. This is Wagner, his comment about being a leader on this team.
I think the middle linebacker position always naturally, you're a leader because you call the plays, you have to relay the messages, you're the one that tend to communicate the most in most cases. So I think it started with people around me. Obviously, Coach Norton was always putting that into my mind, being a leader. Then I was fortunate enough to have conversations with Ray Lewis, Mike Singletary, those guys before me. And so I think I just try to grow into it. I was blessed to have natural leaders. I had Cam Chancellor, I had Sherm, I had Mike Bennett. So those guys I had a chance to learn from. And, when it was my opportunity, I tried to take advantage of it.
All right, so we've established that Bobby Wagner is a leader. Dan Quinn has a lot of confidence in him. We'll see what happens. Back to the regular conversation, the conversation that dominates everything these days in Ashburn. What about the quarterback? How is Jaden Daniels coming along? That question to Quinn yesterday.
As we're getting started, it's a big passing camp. So for the quarterbacks, they're getting some really good looks. There's a number of coverages now that have gone in, from the first day of where it was maybe just 3 deep and man-to-man. So to see that type of progress from he and from the other quarterbacks, I think that's good. In the weeks ahead, we'll add team things to it and blitzes and, a pocket and that kind of stuff. But I think what jumps not only off the tape here, what you guys don't see in the meeting room is just the competitive nature and the learning and the command that he has already. And so that's something that speaks to his work ethic.
When you're a head coach and there's a lot of things on your plate, how much time, energy do you spend monitoring Jaden, checking in with his coaches, making sure that he's on that development curve that you guys would like?
Yeah, and it's for everybody, really, not just Jaden, but to make sure, and I get, the reason behind it, but each of the guys, what can they do? How are they making progress? So we debrief pretty much every day on a practice day, not so much on the non-practice days, and then featuring what other types of things do we need to add to it. So you may see post-practice, they're working one thing today and something different tomorrow. So you're always kind of tweaking and building that, and that's just how we do it at all the spots.
All right, last thing from Quinn from yesterday is the way he is conducting practice and with what he has added. Now, I maybe Ron Rivera had this, I don't know, but this is another element that he's added to the off-season practices.
We're going to try to do it for every practice, and officials at practice also mean that we now have the ability to really put ourselves in situations. So you'll see some 2-minute today, but as important as that, this was an ICT. This is why they threw it. This is why they called, offensive pass interference. Whatever that may have been of training the guys on what good looks like, that's a really important part of it. And so we don't want to create bad habits, so having the officials here is a nice check system.
Dan, training camp's right around the corner. Curious about your philosophy with joint practices, and if you have any joint practices that you know that you can announce or to that nature.
Yeah, so right now we have one joint practice scheduled with Miami, and so that will be there, and we'll work with them for a day and then have our game. And we'll discuss that, with some other teams as we're going in to see if everything logistics-wise can line up. But there's value in it to say just seeing other looks and people and formations and speed, and so there's real value to doing it, and so if we can, we will.
All right, so the two things, he's using officials at practice. We'd like to use them at every practice, get players used to how calls are made, and also the joint practices, which they've had in the past with mixed results. Now they're going to play the Dolphins in a preseason game on August 17th, so before they do that, I guess they'll go down there a couple of days early. They will have a joint practice with the Miami Dolphins, so just get a look at how another team is doing. And, at that point of training camp, you've been in it for over a month. You want to start to, you look at other bodies besides your own, kind of mix things up. So that's set to take place, and he may schedule another one. I guess not. I thought they had a contract with the Ravens. It would make all the sense in the world that you'd practice against the Ravens every year. It's a bus ride. It's not a big deal. But I don't know if they've got anything set. Maybe he gets that worked out this year. He's a new coach. But that is one of the things that he's got set, is that they're going to have this joint practice before they play the Dolphins in August. A couple of other things here. Number one, you remember when the NCAA tournament was going on and NC State was making that miracle run to the Final Four. And one of their stars was DJ Burns, one of the most interesting college basketball players we've seen in a long time. He's 6'9", and was listed at 275 pounds. People who know about these things said, yeah, he might be 50 pounds, 60 pounds heavier than that. He's over 3. He's over 3 bills. It looks that way. And while this was going on, everybody knew that, it's not an NBA player. He's not quick enough to play in the NBA. Can't do it at that size. But, hey, wouldn't he make a great offensive tackle? Got good feet, got quickness enough for that position, can move like he moves under the basket. He's got some moves in that tight area. He might fit great as a left tackle. And he was quick to say, no, I have no desire to play football. And we've had this before. Now, we've had tight ends who have played college basketball. And Anthony Gonzalez was a terrific basketball player at Cal. Also played football, but became a Hall of Fame tight end. Jimmy Graham was a basketball player at Miami. It happens, but you got to like contact. And if you don't love contact, you're not going to play in the NFL, and he's not going to play in the NFL. But the latest is DJ Burns has lost 45 pounds. Now, he's done this in 6 weeks, so I would say you lose quite a bit of muscle when you do it that quickly. He says he's been doing it with morning cardio workouts and no drugs. Well, wasn't he doing this when he was playing college basketball? He didn't for whatever reason. And now he's, I guess, thinking that he's got a shot at the NBA. I mentioned this when we were talking about at the time, that when George Mason made their run to the Final Four in 2006, they had a center named Jai Lewis. He's about 6'6", probably weighed 270, 275, and he was not an NBA player, obviously, but did get a workout or a tryout with the Giants, or maybe they even signed him to a contract. But he went through one minicamp and went, no, this is not for me, and went over to play college pro basketball overseas. And that's probably what's going to happen with Burns, but I think it'd be fun to see him get a look from an NBA team. I can't imagine that he's going to be drafted, but we're not that far away from the Summer League and what goes on in Vegas, and some team I think will bring him in just to take a look at him. But he says he's lost 45 pounds in 6 weeks. I haven't seen any pictures of him, but I would imagine even at his size and what he had weighed, a 45-pound difference would be noticeable. The question is, what would he lose in muscle? What would he lose in quickness? That sort of thing. But I guess it would make you quicker if you lost weight. And then this. Hal Steinbrenner, running the Yankees, says that the current payroll is unsustainable. Now, they're going to have Juan Soto coming up for free agency at the end of the season. Soto has been a sensation in New York, and that short right porch is terrific for him. I mean, I think it would be in the best interest of Juan Soto to sign with the Yankees, but his agent is Scott Boras. He's going to look for the most money. And Hal Steinbrenner is saying the current payroll of more than $300 million is not going to be sustainable, especially if you're going to add Soto at more than $500 million. And who knows, with Ohtani getting 7, maybe the number's over 6. I don't know. Steinbrenner went on to say, I'm going to be honest, payrolls at the level we're at right now simply are not sustainable for us financially. It wouldn't be sustainable for the vast majority of ownership groups given the luxury tax that we pay. He did say, though, it doesn't mean that they're going to rule out signing Juan Soto. They got some big contracts that are coming off the books after this year. Gleyber Torres making $14 million. He's going to come off. Clay Holmes makes $6 million. There's a few that won't be back. Anthony Rizzo has a $17 million option for 2025. I would think that he would pick that up. And if Soto is going to be collecting $40 million next year, that's going to be difficult to do with his stance that the payroll is too high. Here's my thought, and it may be just a wild thought, but let's say Ted Leonsis said it last week. He said he'd like to make another run at buying the Nationals, even though the team is at the moment not up for sale. But let's just say at the end of the season they close on a deal that Ted Leonsis owns the Washington Nationals, along with the hockey team and the basketball team. I don't think there's anything like this in any other market. Stan Kroenke, who owns the Colorado Avalanche and owns the Rams, those are in different markets. But the same owner for 3 of the 4 major teams in one market, I guess it could happen. And one of the things that Ted has said, he's been open about this, he wants the Nationals for programming for his Monumental Sports Network. Well, look at this. Look at how Ted had success with the Capitals. He had a big identifiable star in Alex Ovechkin, signed him to a long-term contract, and Ovechkin is a Capital for life. It not only resulted in a Stanley Cup championship, finally, in 2018, but it resulted in monster attendance over the years. They've done very, very well with attendance, in large part due to Ovechkin. And I don't know about the TV numbers, but they certainly weren't hurt by his presence. Do you think that Ted would be willing to outbid the Yankees for a 26-year-old Juan Soto? Let's not forget that. Juan Soto is not 28 or 29, as Ohtani is. Ohtani's 29. Soto will be 26 next season. I don't think it's going to happen. I believe he's going to re-sign with the Yankees. I believe that Scott Boras will realize that's in the best interest of his client. But Soto always loved playing here in Washington. Loved the fans, had his great success in his second year when they won the World Series. I don't think it's out of the question. It's far-fetched, but I don't think it's out of the question that Ted Leonsis, if he buys the Nationals, will make a strong bid to sign Juan Soto in free agency. And you know he's going to go to free agency. I can't imagine that before the end of the season, before he reaches that point, he'll sign a long-term deal with the Yankees, unless it's just, they just blow it out of the water. Unless Boris convinces them that they've got the East Coast Ohtani, and you'll pay whatever it takes to get him. But I just look at what Steinbrenner is saying, and maybe it's bargaining position, it's posturing, but if they look at it and say, I'm sorry, we just can't go that high, Ted might be willing to do it. And from a business standpoint, it might not be the dumbest thing in the world. I mean, you want to have a marketable star for ratings. Ratings matter on his network. And the difference between having Juan Soto and not Juan Soto might be that $40 million a year, or close to it, that $40 million a year difference in terms of ratings, advertising, image of the team, tickets sold, the whole thing. He might prove to be well worth that price, and it might work out. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's worth considering. And wouldn't that juice up the baseball interest here greatly if Juan Soto were on the table and possibly signing here as a free agent? All right, coming up next hour, more react from the Commanders' offseason workouts, what Aaron Rodgers said about his situation with the Jets, and maybe more tenuous than you might think. Plus, it was 6 years ago today that we had an anthem policy put in the NFL, and we look back on it now and go, gee, what was the big deal? It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630. In less than a minute, I'm going to explain why Bobby Wagner, the new Commanders middle linebacker and leader of the defense, and I have become soulmates. Yeah, we're absolute soulmates on this. I'll explain that coming up. Aaron Rodgers talked to the media the other day in New York. When Aaron Rodgers speaks, it's like E.F. Hutton. People listen. And he said some stuff, which some of it's very good. Some of it's like, really? Okay. Also, it was 6 years ago today that the NFL came up with an anthem policy, which was such a hot button at the time. And with what has transpired in those 6 years, it's a nothing burger. I don't even think people know there's a national anthem policy in effect right now, or maybe it was overturned down the line. But when this happened, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Yeah, so we'll get to that. Oh, okay. Why am I a soulmate with Bobby Wagner? Bobby Wagner grew up in California, went to college in California, played for the Seattle Seahawks, and played for the Los Angeles Rams. He is a West Coast guy. He is now an East Coast guy. Could be 1 year, could be 5 years, could be he likes it so much that he moves his family here, settles down in the Washington area, and he becomes an East Coast guy. But he's a West Coast guy, having to adapt as he is now playing here, and said something yesterday about the adapting process that has me raising my fist in solidarity.
You know, the biggest challenge is being on the East Coast is trying to watch a basketball game. It's like the game that I want to watch comes on at 10:30, comes off at 12:30, and then practice I got to be up at 6:45 or whatever it is. That's been the hardest part. Luckily, Lakers not playing, so I'm cool. But I want to watch Kyrie play. But hopefully they change that just for Bobby, I guess.
Oh, I wish they'd change it for Bobby. I wish they'd change it for anybody. I wish they'd change it for me, but they're not going to. Yeah, last night's game tipped off at 8:30. The Eastern Conference Finals, well, supposed to be 8 o'clock, but by the time they get finished futzing around, it's like 8:15. This is getting closer to an 8:30 tip-off, maybe 8:35, but it's a 2.5-hour game. So you're ending sometimes later than 11:30 if it goes overtime. Did go overtime with the Eastern game on the other night. So, yeah, I'd love to see that changed, but they won't. They want the primetime audience on the West Coast, so they sacrifice us. And, I mean, there was a time when I just wanted to be on the West Coast in the worst way. It's not practical, and I'm no complaints about the way things have worked out for my career here in Washington. I wouldn't trade that for anything. But, man, many years ago, I was visiting a friend out there during the NFL playoffs, and this is when they used to start the games at 12:30. Now, I guess they don't get started until like 4:30. But in those days, you'd have a 12:30 game, and then you'd have a 4 o'clock game, and that would be it. This is before they went to the Saturday night games, and now even the Sunday games, you're kicking off at 6 o'clock. They want primetime television numbers. Well, I'm out on the West Coast, and there's a playoff game on at 9:30 in the morning. Hallelujah. That's my time. And, it would be great if the network said, Bobby, you're right. It's hard on people on the East Coast who want to watch these games, and they're not tipping off until close to 9 o'clock. And he was also complaining about the games that were tipping off at 10:30. We don't have that. But when you have the earlier rounds and the West Coast teams are playing, that's what they are. They're 10:30 tip-offs, and he's got to get up early and go to work, like most people on the East Coast when they have games during the week. Now, tomorrow is Friday. Okay, it'll be an 8:30 tip-off. I have difficulty staying up, but at least, for most people, you don't have to get up early on a Saturday. But Bobby Wagner, realizing something that most of us have struggled with our whole lives, these damn late tip-offs, and you're coming in from the West Coast where I guess the latest tip-off would be like 7:30, right? Yeah. Because, if the Lakers are tipping off at 7:30, it's 10:30 here. And 7:30 you can deal with. I don't think they have any – if you got a game that's tipping off at 9 o'clock on the West Coast, that's midnight here. That almost never happens. So, yeah, that is definitely one of the downsides of being on the East Coast. I mean, I've lived here most of my life. I did live in the Central Time Zone for 6 years in Texas, kind of like that. That was all right. And then I lived in New York and Washington, and those are both, of course, East Coast time. So good for you, Bobby Wagner, for speaking out. I don't think your movement is going to be successful. I don't think, as you say, they'll do it for Bobby, but I'd love for them to do it for Bobby. Meantime, a very happy teammate now with Bobby Wagner, someone who's going into his 8th year with the organization. And, the trouble that he has seen. He is second on the seniority list to punter Tress Way, and that is defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, who at the end of last year said that he didn't want to go through another rebuild. He wanted to stay here, but he wanted to win, and he was tired of all the losing. A 4-13 season, which had him exploding during it when he just went off after the loss to Philadelphia on the road and dropped a bunch of F-bombs and basically told everybody he was fed up. Like, he didn't say, get me out of here, but that was the indication. And it was out of character because he's always cooperative after games, always talks to the media, and is a team captain, a very, very well-respected person in the organization. He has said positive things at this time of year in the past, but I don't think he said it quite as well as he said it yesterday.
I'm just so happy. I love the coaching staff. I love the direction we're moving at. I love the way we're working, man. It has truly been reinvigorating and just so fun to come to work every day. And this is literally just a dream job right now.
Dream job. And also more follow-up on that. How is it different from the way it's been in the past?
When I first met with Coach Quinn, I just loved the energy he brought. I just loved the vision that he had for this team, and I was excited to just get to work, and every day is just like refreshing, you know what I mean? It reminds me of Alabama a little bit with the level of competition we have and the way we work, and it's been really good for me. It's been really good.
You've made it known you just want to win, period. Is this the best you felt kind of just going into a season about, what? I think we're getting the pieces, like we can win here.
It's hard to say. I mean, games aren't won in May. They're won in September. So all I can say is we're working really hard, and I like the direction we're going at. We still got a long way to go. I have a long way to go. So, we'll see come the season. But I can say for right now, this has been an awesome, OTA so far.
That's very smart. And he has seen what has gone on here for years where they over-celebrate anything, And this goes back to when Dan Snyder first bought the team. And they had been put in very good shape by Charlie Casserly, who managed to get the entire draft of the New Orleans Saints for the rights to Ricky Williams. I mean, one of the all-time draft day trades. So they were really well set up with players and with salary cap room and so forth, and they won the division in Snyder's first year. Well, what did he do? He put up banners, even though they only won one playoff game, put up banners in Ashburn. Hey, we're division champs. And people said, hey, check the trophy case down the hall, Dan. We got 3 Lombardis there. That's the standard. And over the years, they would always, talk about how great they were at this time of year, and they really weren't. So good for Allen for realizing, wait a minute, yeah, I mean, there's positive vibes. Everything feels good, but games are won in September. They're not won in May. Marcus Mariota, and I like the fact that they have not yet named Jaden Daniels the starting quarterback. I think if all goes well, he'll be starting in the opener when they get going against Tampa on September the 9th, or the 8th, I think it is. But, they have not said, oh, absolutely, he's the starter. Marcus Mariota is here. Marcus Mariota 2 years ago started 12 games for the Falcons, and he's a player that they could roll out there until they're absolutely sure Daniels is ready. Now, the goal, as Dan Quinn said, I mean, let's not be foolish here. You don't take a guy number 2 and not play him. They're going to get him ready to play and get him ready the best they can and as soon as they can. But if not, you got Marcus Mariota, who has this attitude about what he's doing in this offseason workout program and heading into training camp.
I think competition makes everybody better. Regardless of who is the starter day one. I checked my ego a long time ago, and I really believe that when you have a healthy quarterback room that's really just trying to compete and make each other better, you're going to eventually get everybody in that room to play at their best levels. So regardless of who's the starter week one, I'm going to do everything I can to be the best version of myself and also bring out the best out of my teammates.
How did you check your ego, and how is that different than you were in Philly or Atlanta?
It wasn't different then. I think this game humbles you. I was humbled very early on in my career in Tennessee, and I love ball. I love being around it. So regardless of what my situation entails, I put a smile on my face, and I love coming to work. And that's not going to be any different if I'm here or somewhere else. I don't change that mentality for anything.
One thing they want to say to Jaden Daniels, and say it in a way that's nice, but reality is you don't want to be this guy. Marcus Mariota was also the number 2 pick of the draft. Marcus Mariota was also the Heisman Trophy winner. You don't want to be in a position 5-6 years down the road where you say, I've had to check my ego. You want your ego up there. You want to still be the leader of the team. So it's a role model that makes sense. You want a guy who has an understanding of what Daniels is going through right now, how it didn't work out for him in Tennessee. And he had the same circumstance, the savior of the franchise as the number 2 pick of the draft, the Heisman Trophy winner. But now he's at a point in his career where he's got to be a competitor, but he also has to be a mentor. And this is Mariota addressing how he balances the two.
Well, I think it's competing with yourself. I learned a long time ago, when you try to compare yourself or you try to compete against somebody else, you're really just trying to be better than what's in front of you. And I think if you try to focus on being the best version of yourself every day and competing that way, you'll find that you're making better plays, you're making better decisions. So I look at it from that standpoint of just like, how can I get better myself? At the same time, just kind of bringing up the quarterback room as well.
What year number is this for you in the NFL?
This is 10.
So that fire.
Oh, it's still there.
How's this? Explain that. How's it still there even at year 10?
Yeah, the passion's still there. To be honest with you, there's moments when it wasn't there. Whether it was situations that I had previously in my career that kind of knock you down. But being around this staff, being around someone like Brian again, you find the love. And I've kind of had this roller coaster of emotions through my career of my love with the game and my love of football. And when you come to work and you got such a great energy and a great group of guys, it kind of just ignites that again. And like I said, I wouldn't pass this opportunity up for anything, and I've been really enjoying it.
All right, so that's Marcus Mariota. All good stuff coming out of Ashburn yesterday. As what'll happen is, I guess they got another 2-3 weeks of these off-season workouts. They don't do it every day. And then next month you have the full mandatory minicamp, although I don't think anybody has been missing workouts. I think that it's full attendance, if I'm not mistaken. But they will have a mandatory minicamp, and then that's it. They break for about a month, and they get ready for training camp. I assume it's going to be in Ashburn, but there is a possibility it's going to be someplace else, and that may be something that's in the works right now because they've upgraded the facility. But if you've been out there, well, I don't know why we'd go out there, but I was there recently, and they have still that old artificial turf there. The fields are not in the best condition. You want to have a training camp set up. I don't think they're going to go back to Richmond, but it's possible that they're going to have it someplace else. We'll have to see. Shifting a bit here, I don't want to shift to this. This is baseball, and there's something that they now call exit velocity, exit velo. How fast a ball travels when it goes off a bat. In the past, it hadn't really seemed to be that big of a deal. Balls hit hard. Man, that ball was hit hard. Well, now they measure exactly how hard it's hit. And we had a circumstance a couple of days ago with the Pittsburgh Pirates where there was incredible exit velo, which is something that Tony and Mike looked at yesterday on PTI.
Wins. Last night, Pirates shortstop O'Neill Cruz hit 3 balls faster than 115 miles an hour. 2 of them went faster than 120 miles an hour. His first player to ever do that. Yes, Wilbon, we're talking about exit velo, which admittedly is a relatively new thing. Here's the kicker. On the balls Cruz hit over 120 miles an hour, once he couldn't get to second, and on the other, the base runner couldn't score. So I ask you, was O'Neill Cruz's exit velo a big deal, a little deal, or no deal at all?
Not only is it no deal, it angers me. And in talking about this and thinking about it, and I'm glad we're doing this topic, Tony. So let me ask you something. The velo, the exit velo, does it mean he's a better hitter than Tony Gwynn, who might have dribbled the field through the infield in his day and hit about 330 career and flirted with 400 once? Meaning he's a better hitter than him? And so what? So what? He's a 260 hitter. So why do I give a damn about the exit velo? I don't. Mm-hmm. And so I guess people need this, Tony, to become interested and more fascinated. And they go, oh, wow. Not only do I not go, oh, wow, it has started the ruination of watching sports for me. Numbers like this repeatedly and put up on the screen day in, day out. It has ruined it because people aren't concentrating on the fact that he is 260 instead of 330. They're concentrating on exit velo. That's just me. You're older than me and more crotchety than me, at least you used to be. How you feeling about this?
Yeah, I'm different than you about this. I appreciate numbers that are new to me. I don't swear by them, but I appreciate them. I don't think, as you do, that it's hocus pocus junk. For example, I see a direct correlation between swing speed and your distance off the tee. And I think everybody does. Rory McIlroy, his swing speed is greater than everybody else's, and he goes 300 plus on driver all the time. It's a little more nuanced for me with exit velo, because if it's truly exit velo, Mike, and the ball exits the park and it's a home run and they get runs, I don't care how fast it went out.
But
and
he's
if
only
you
got
tell me
7.
that if it wait,
He's only
and
got
if
7.
and if you tell me that it stays in the park and the guy can't go to second, then I don't really think that it's a great idea. But in general, I appreciate the numbers more than you do. And this guy not only hits it faster than anyone, he throws it faster than anyone. Remember last year I said he should be a pitcher when they said he was clocked at 98 miles an hour? There's him and Ellie De La Cruz from Cincinnati. They throw it faster than anybody.
Yeah, they throw it fast and they hit it hard. But what does it mean? Especially in this case of O'Neill Cruz, where he hits balls that would be normally doubles, but they get to the wall so fast and bounce back, he can't make it to second base, and he's fast. He's like, and they're tall. Both of them, they're both De La Cruz and Cruz. They're like 6'6". They're different models than we've seen for shortstops in the past. Not that we haven't had tall shortstops. Cal Ripken being an example of that. But yeah, and I'm not with Wilbon that it's the ruination of sports. But I'll say this: this exit velo, they're keeping track of it now. But I gotta wonder what it was for some. Growing up, my hero was Frank Howard. And when they opened up RFK Stadium for the Nationals to start playing there in 2005, they played 3 seasons there before the new ballpark opened. People looked at those white seats in center field and said, who the hell hit it out that far? Oh, Frank Howard. And there's several of them. He did it? Yeah. So he was 6'7". he swung a bat that was heavier than what anybody uses now. I think it was like a 38 or 39-ounce bat, and he was a bopper, and he could hit it out. And pitchers did throw 100, though they didn't measure it as much. But Nolan Ryan was pitching in the American League then for the California Angels. You had other fireballers who could throw fast, and we had, during the height of the steroid era, Mark McGwire, all roided up, who hit a home run off Randy Johnson 100-mile-an-hour fastball that went something like 550 feet. What was the exit velo on that? They just didn't know it. So, it's one thing that they can now measure it, but I think the point that the two of them are making there is, what good does it do if you hit a ball so hard that it would normally be a double and it turns into a single because it leaves your bat so quickly and bounces back off the wall so fast? So, I think we have. I'm not fully in the Wilbon camp about hocus pocus junk for statistics, but I think it's a little bit much. It's like, oh, that was a hard hit ball. Do I need to know it was 150 miles an hour? No, not really, but okay. And it may help scouts determine how to pitch to a certain player or how to use a certain player, but it does seem to be more complicated than it needs to be. I grew up, you looked at the batting average, you looked at the runs batted in, home runs, that sort of thing. You didn't look at exit velo, but now you do. And I didn't even know what velo meant. It's short for velocity, obviously, but that's where we are with baseball right now. One other thing to finish up with here, I've been holding this for a couple of days. This is from the New York Times this week, that they have something in Seattle for Mariners game, which is called Hot Dogs from Heaven. And they went through a lot of diagnostic testing to see if this works, but they managed to make it work. 75 hot dogs dropping from the upper deck with parachutes. Now, they had to get the right weight ratio to make this happen, but out of the sky comes a hot dog at the end of a parachute with the condiments inside the box, and said applying the concept to a hot dog took testing reminiscent of a middle school science fair project. They found the weight of the hot dog, the bun, the condiment package, and the packaging before plugging the number into a model rocket website that told them how big the parachute needed to be to reach the ground safely. The first iteration featured 50 hot dog projectiles with 25 more added over the weekend. The team hopes to send 100 hot dogs skydiving on one night in the future when there's no shortage of volunteers to toss. Everyone in the front row wants to go throw the hot dogs. So this could be coming to a stadium near you. It's being tested in Seattle. I've never been to the ballpark, but I understand it's a very nice place. And I guess you could get a hot dog coming down from the sky. I'm not one of those who tries to get the T-shirts from the kids when they shoot it out of a cannon. I kind of don't think they're necessary at major league games. It's a cool thing to do in a minor league ballpark, but they want to keep you more engaged. The game is better. It moves along faster. You can watch it, but I guess promotions are all a part of it. So the parachuting hot dogs could be coming to a ballpark near you. All right, that is a wrap for me. Mike Callow is in for Tony coming up next tomorrow, Holiday Friday, as we head into a holiday weekend. I'll see you then at 9 a.m.